Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Happy Groundhog's Day. Today is February 2nd. Today we're going to take a look at the Pacific Northwest weather and the forecast. As always, we'll take a look at the extended forecast as well. And you can see that we've got a big winter storm going across the central portions of the country, all the way from the Rockies out towards the very far northeast reaches of the continental U.S. We've got some pretty good moisture coming up out of the Gulf. That's mixing with another atmospheric river coming off the Pacific there. It's going to bring some really high moisture values across central portions here, and that's setting up for some pretty dynamic ice storm. We'll look at that in some detail also. You can see how this air has just kind of overtaken the continent and moved off onto the Pacific Ocean here. It makes a nice image there on the satellite. You can see this weak system moving over the Pacific Northwest here. Not much precipitation associated with it. It was snowing at Vancouver, BC. If this was a more dynamic system, it probably would have had a decent snow event, mostly Snohomish counties northward. But right now, Bellingham, it's not snowing. It hasn't been for the last several hours now. And we're going to start warming up. We've reversed that offshore gradient now, and it's pretty much starting to turn back onshore. So we're going to warm up pretty quick. Some slight and light snow accumulations are possible, northern areas, but not a big event at all. And looking into things here, you can see the groundhog saw a shadow this morning, so prepare for 6 more weeks of winter, but take that with a grain of salt. The forecast of the groundhog is about as accurate as flipping a coin, sometimes even less. So nice little ceremony there, but Punxsutawney Phil saw a shadow this morning. So taking a look at the rest of the country here, look at all these winter storm warnings stretching all the way up towards the northeast, all the way back towards the Rocky Mountains here down into Texas. We have an ice storm warning for areas through the Mississippi Valley area here. And it got some hard freeze warnings all the way down into Arizona, some wind advisories through Vegas and out in the desert areas of California. And we've got a winter weather advisory for areas of Washington, Idaho, and northeast Oregon. And of course, if you're driving eastbound, beware of those wind chill advisories all the way from Montana, the Dakotas, out towards Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota. So jumping on in here, the winter storm headlines for some ice storm warning here. So this could be a pretty significant event. I've seen some possible totals up over half an inch of ice, which can cause a lot of tree damage. It would be a pretty significant power outage. Some major disruptions with that kind of ice accumulation on trees and power lines. And here, taking a look at the European model, this is this last night's run here. But check out some of these ice accumulation totals through Missouri, down through Arkansas, all the way back into Texas and Oklahoma. Tennessee, Kentucky getting in on that action. And I don't know if these are going to verify, but this is intense ice accumulation. As you guys know, as some of you know, a half inch of ice accumulated on something weighs much more than snow does. It is basically just pure moisture frozen to objects, and it's just going to drag down trees. It can weigh on power lines and be very disruptive. Ice storms can be extremely disruptive. So jumping right into what you can expect down in Arizona, if you got any interest down there, check this out. Hard freeze warning, freeze warning. So some chilly temperatures moving down in here. Check out some of the higher terrain. There's some single digits even there. And this is for the strong north winds going down through the Vegas area. I know a lot of people like to travel down there from the Pacific Northwest, so heads up if you're going down there. It's going to be chilly and windy down there through the Vegas area. So this is what we're looking at now. You can see this storm is underway. We can see some freezing rain, ice, some snow behind it. You see this huge Arctic air mass barreling down into the center portions of the country. You see our weak system here for the Pacific Northwest. Got some mountain snows and potentially a little bit of snow for the extreme northern areas, the Puget Sound on into the southern mainland BC. As we put this into motion here, you can see the storm system get really going. Check out Arkansas back into Texas. Some pretty good ice accumulations, like I mentioned, and you can see this boundary just sets up all the way back towards the Rockies, all the way off the coast up towards Newfoundland, way out over the Atlantic Ocean even. Quite a dynamic system. And then you can see as that cold front moves down over the Gulf, Texas gets out of the precipitation. Then you can see that frontal system moves offshore, and then there's another clipper system that moves through, another reinforcing shot of Arctic air behind that even. And as we get a weak system coming through here on into next week. We also get a system on Friday, I should highlight too, that could cause some mountain snows for eastern portions and on into Montana. This will be a mountain snowmaker for the Pacific Northwest. Doesn't make much headway down into Oregon there, as you can see. So the quiet weather kind of continues down there for Oregon after the last bout of snow we got. Looks like things aren't going to pick up anytime soon. And then going on into next week, that very weak system that slides in through Canada brings a little bit of mountain snow to the Cascades. And then you can see this ridge kind of set up again. It's more of a flattened ridge, or at least some models are hinting at a flattened ridge, which allows some systems to move over the top of this. You can see some storm systems coming over the top. But again, you can see this Arctic air mostly east of the Rockies as you go on to the extended here, the GFS. And this ridge is just too close to allow a good Arctic air intrusion into our area here. So we'll look at more of that here coming up. And you can see we've got no advisories across Puget Sound. There's no winter weather advisories at all for Skagit, Whatcom, or Snohomish counties. Any amounts will be very light and brief. And there is a winter weather advisory for areas out here. You can see some totals up to 3 inches there out towards Pullman, mainly south of I-90, as you can see. So if you're traveling eastbound out of, through the Cascades into eastern Washington and Idaho, heads up for that. There could be some snowfall going on today. And off into Missoula, Montana, you can see the higher terrains with winter weather advisories. There's that winter weather advisory for Washington, Idaho over there, and mainly the wind chill advisory if you're driving through the area. So let's jump out to some of the extended looks here. Here's the GFS that ran this morning. You can see the system that moves through Friday, very weak, and then another weak system for us anyway. It's more powerful as you go further north. But talking about the Pacific Northwest here, another weak system slides through, and you can see this ridge set up, and it's quite, this thing has been persistent for a while here. And then you'll notice in the extended, the European and the GFS have been hinting at this, some retrograde activity with this ridge as it moves a little bit off to the northwest and allows some systems to clip us out of the north. So that's just kind of what we're watching for now in the extended, to see if this ridge does show signs of retrograding, and trying to get some model agreement on where that's going to set up. Right now some runs have been better than others. Some of them yesterday on the European actually had some good, the ridge moving a little bit further west and allow some of that cold air to move down into our region. And this would kind of clip us with it here on the GFS. But this is way out in fantasy land, folks. So we're just kind of paying attention to see how this ridge sets up and trying to get some model agreement at this point. And here we'll just look at the rest of the country here too, including the lower 48. This is the one that's running right now. So you can kind of see what's going on currently. So as you can see, very chilly air, mostly east of the Rockies here. And we're going ahead a little too fast. But you can see how some of this air is really cold. It gets down into Texas. And you can see most of this Arctic air is east of the Rockies, just didn't make it in here this time. It was close, but it just didn't do it. And you can see how this cold air just moves all the way out into Mexico, as we talked about yesterday too. And on the north side of that boundary, check this out, just this really unusually cold air down into central portions of the country. And as we stay fairly warm here in the Pacific Northwest. So let's go ahead and look at the 5,000-foot temperatures here. You can see just not much going on for us here in the Pacific Northwest as this storm moves down here. A lot of this colder air is going to be shallow at the surface here. You see it's not that chilly aloft here where this ice storm is setting up here. And now looking at our conditions here in the Pacific Northwest. In fact, let's update this to, I think we have a newer run coming in, and we do. And we'll just kind of take a look at what's going on here. You see we had a brief bout of some outflow winds going through the Fraser River Gap there. And you'll notice that gradient kind of died off there. And now we're starting to return to this weak southerly flow as it goes through here. So it's going to warm up our area pretty quickly into this afternoon. That's why the snowfall totals are going to be brief and very light. And then you'll notice we're purely onshore here as we go into Thursday. And then a weak system moves over the top of us on Friday and it increases our southerly flow through here. And then a shot of some winds down the Strait of Juan de Fuca there. And we'll see how this develops. We'll look at this one a little bit closer tomorrow, this storm system, to see what kind of potential it could bring. There's almost a little bit of a convergence zone signature, it looks like here. But yeah, we're going to return to some stronger onshore flow as we go into Friday here. And then as we look into early next week, you can see another weak system moves further north of us. So no dynamic storms moving into our area anytime here in the future. And this shows kind of what we went through starting yesterday. So you can see we were offshore gradient started yesterday morning, and then it peaked at just about 5Z, which is about 9 o'clock here in the Pacific Northwest. And you can see it's been tapering off since. And we're now going back to onshore gradient, Bellingham, higher pressure than Lake Williams. And so that's what's going to start scouring what meager cold dry air made it into the region there. And you can see here, it was snowing for a bit at Vancouver, but that has since stopped there. And that would be about 10:19. And yeah, so light snow was just intermittent. Hasn't been snowing at Bellingham at all recently. So there's still some moisture coming in, but you can see they went above freezing a bit here, and you still have some chilly dew points around. So if we had a more dynamic system, you could turn this into some snow as you get that wet bulb cooling effect. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So here's just kind of showing that those dew points up there are pretty chilly, but we're just not able to take advantage of that with a strong enough system. And by the time most of the precipitation gets in here this afternoon, that's still going to be fairly light. You can see those dew points have gone above freezing, and Indian Earth snow threat all the way up into southern BC. And taking a look at the precipitation, as you can see, not much snowfall for areas of the Puget Sound at all. A little bit moves in here as we go into the afternoon, but again, it's not going to be a major event by any means. There's no winter weather advisories issued by the National Weather Service at all. And by this evening, it's going to be all rain through the lowlands. And you can see as we go a little bit into the future here, this next system comes in, and you can see it spreads a weak frontal system over us, more mountain snow, generally light precipitation amounts in the lowlands though. And here's the NAM3 cam. Let's take a look at this. 24-hour snow totals. You can see we got some decent amounts here in the mountains. And it looks like it overdid some of that snowfall when we started this run here for areas up towards the lower mainland. I didn't see any snowfall totals coming in there this morning. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me if I am. And then you can see that weak system moving through Friday brings some more mountain snows. Not terribly heavy amounts though. And we'll skip on through the HER. The NAM covered that pretty well. So here is the GFS of this morning. This kind of shows an ensemble mean here of what's going on. You can see now we're out to next Tuesday. I'm trying to show a little bit of a pattern here of what's coming up. You can see this powerful ridging again over the top of us. And at the very end of the run, it starts to retrograde a bit, which could potentially allow for some cold air to get in here, but that's got a lot of work to do. This is still too close, and it would leave most of that Arctic air off to the east of the Rockies and the eastern portions of the country. You can see that nice yin and yang playing out. What goes up must come down, and right now we are on the upside of these of the entire ridging and trough position here across the United States. And here was last night's European run, so let's put that into motion. You can see this colder air spawning, this polar lobe spawning that weather system across the central portions of the USA. And you can see our weak system move through Friday here. Again, very weak. And then another system kind of sliding by on Monday. And then that ridge sets up on the European. And then there's some signs here of it retrograding a little bit and brings a polar lobe mostly east of the Rockies again, still too close to that ridge. And then in the very extended, it kind of shows some of that retrograding back over us. But this is way out in fantasy land. And right now we're just, we have no other choice but just kind of watch to see what this ridge does and just how much of this cold air is going to get to our region. And just if we're going to get back into an active pattern of weather or not. So that's where we stand as of now. So yeah, get out and enjoy Groundhog Day. And remember that your coin flip is just as accurate as the groundhog. No winter weather advisories to the Puget Sound or Western Oregon right now. A little one out there for areas of southeast Washington, northeast Oregon, off in Idaho. And the big storm of the day is out across the Midwest, all the way back to the Rockies and off to the Northeast. So plenty of winter storm warnings. If you guys have interest out there, heads up. If you're traveling, watch out for going to those areas. Pretty good ice storm. Looks like it's setting up across areas of Arkansas. So hopefully you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. We'll continue to just take a look at what we can expect for the extended. And that is it for today. I'll talk to you later.